It's Tuesday. We're going to talk NASCAR with Rod Mullins. I'm Chris Graham. And hey, Rod, let's start with the final race of the 2025 NASCAR regular season. And we've got our playoff field set and quite an exciting finish to get there. A bunch of playoff contenders
Right.
were in the mix in his last couple laps. And then some guy comes from back in 13th place to knock them all out.
Yeah, comes back from 12th place actually. Ryan Blaney came back through the field and just laid waste to the field. But that was because he was able to get up there in the front, not only just because of the draft and a little bit of help, but there was a big melee. There was a big wreck that happened earlier on in the race, and Bubba Wallace was involved with it, which Bubba Wallace is kind of directly, indirectly taken responsibility for it and said, well, I just guess it was a Bubba Wallace fault sort of thing. But it took a lot of the contenders out and messed up a lot of cars. And, one of those people that was hanging on the playoff bubble was Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch got collected in that wreck. Then you had Denny Hamlin have some problems later on. He made it through that. But then I've never heard this many F bombs dropped by Denny Hamlin talking to his crew chief, telling him, I'm not pitting, I'm not coming into the pits, and he says, I just need a tire. I just need a tire. And said, no, we need for you to come into the pits. We need to find out what's wrong with the car. And it was F bomb, F bomb, F bomb, everything else coming out of Denny Hamlin. And I'm sure there's a lot of frustration over a lot of things, which we'll talk about here later. But yeah, it was a dandy race all the way down to the very end. And there for a while, I thought Eric Jones was going to pull off the upset, and he was going to get into the playoffs, much like what Harrison Burton did last year, and pull off a big win. And all it took was Kyle Larson and a little bit of bumping that Eric Jones just could not make it. He just could not deal with what was going on back behind him, and after that, he went to the back and then ended up, I think, as they crossed the start finish line, he ended up finishing fifth, I believe, out of the whole thing. So it was a night of ups and downs for a lot of drivers.
Mentioned that there were two playoff spots going that were open going into the race. One of the playoff spots got determined relatively early, right, with that one of those big wrecks.
Yeah, and that was Alex Bowman. We
Yeah.
thought Alex Bowman was out of contention, but with Ryan Blaney winning the race, eliminating somebody that came out of nowhere to win the race like they did last year with Harrison Burton, it preserved him making the race and making the playoffs. And so Alex Bowman pretty much said, I owe Ryan Blaney probably about 7 million beers, and Ryan Blaney was we'll forget about some of that. Maybe he owes me 5 million beers, but we'll take it for that. But yeah, that's how strange this whole thing worked out. That Alex Bowman, who was thought to be on that bubble, about to go out of this thing and not make the playoffs, be the first Hendrick car that didn't make it this year. The rest of them are in the playoffs now. All four of them are in the playoffs.
So he got locked in, and then because Blaney had already won a race earlier this year, and he was
Yep.
already locked in, who got that 16th spot as a result?
Well, I'm looking here. I'm trying to go over and see who got that 16th spot out of it. I know that Bowman was in it as well. Let's see if I'm looking this over. I know that Bush and Stenhouse were eliminated from contention out of it completely. I'm trying to think. I'm looking back here at some of the stats to try to come up with this and see who it might have been. And right now, it kind of escapes me as to who it was. But I know we were about to see some other drivers pull off a win in this one. Cole Custer was one of these drivers that came out of nowhere. Joey Logano got spun in it, got spun out, which we saw what ended up happening to him. Gosh, it was just an incredible race altogether. A victory by Suarez, Justin Haley, or Cole Custer would have knocked Bowman out. But instead, Bowman claimed the 16th spot and his final playoff spot based upon points. So there's the spot. That's who got it.
Okay, so we got the field set, and we've got our playoff races starting this weekend. We'll talk about that as we go into the show. Let's do some off the track news now.
Okay.
We'll start with because there's a couple of good things to talk about. Let's start with the controversial one. The We've been talking about this off and on for the last couple of years. The lawsuit involving the charter system. Some new developments with 2311 and with Front Row Motorsports and NASCAR. What's the latest?
There was some wild rumblings going through the garage area at Daytona this past weekend, and we love to. Well, can't say that we love to. Not all of us love this stuff, but there was a lot of clickbait out there on Facebook this past weekend, and one in particular was a picture of Michael Jordan saying that if they end up losing their charters, they're gone. They're leaving. They're going to leave the sport altogether, which then forced both parties into the legal proceedings and into the courtroom on Monday, I should say, or at least filing a brief. And that was 2311 and Front Row Motorsports filing a brief to be heard on Thursday. NASCAR says they already have someone ready to pay the price for these charters that are open, that has been left open because of 2311 and Front Row not signing the charter agreement and so forth. And so now you're going into Darlington this weekend after the playoffs, after the regular season race. And then you've got Bubba Wallace, who's in the playoffs. You've got Tyler Reddick that's in there. And you're trying to hold on to what you can. And NASCAR is trying to go and sell the charter out from under you, and the season's not even over with yet. That means that if they were able to sell that charter and, somebody pay that price, they shut down. They shut down at the end. They shut down immediately. And then at that point, what ends up happening is they're gone. Tyler Reddick has got a clause in his contract that says that if something happens like that, he's gone. He can go to another race team. There's a lot of limbo questions here, and we're not talking the limbo on the beach. We're talking things that are in limbo as for both of these parties, NASCAR and for 2311 and Front Row Motorsports.
Let's think of an equivalent in the other sports in the U.S. Okay, the Yankees made the playoffs. Oh, sorry. Actually, the Yankees don't exist anymore.
Right. Yeah, that's the kind of the best way to describe it. It's weird. It's just I don't know where this is going to go. I'm just as confused now. Both parties have traded barbs back and forth. NASCAR has been dirty about some things. 2311 has been dirty about some things. They almost claim in such a way it's almost like two groups, say a union and also the owner, that just can't get along, and they're saying bad things about one another and vying and try to pry some kind of solution into the whole thing and saying everything's about to fall apart. But then at the 11th hour, come in and say we've reached an agreement on this. So that's about as much as I can think about it.
That's what's going to end up happening. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't. I just I don't foresee that NASCAR is going to let it get to a point where they run off those drivers, Denny
Mm-hmm.
Hamlin and Michael Jordan particularly. I mean, it's just hard to imagine that gets that far. But you play a little bit of brinksmanship here. This is it's legal brinksmanship. It's NASCAR guys, and they're going to
Right.
push it as far as they can. They're going to bump. They're going to trade some paint here a little bit. So. But man, yeah, it's getting interesting here. No doubt about that.
I think I compared it in the article that I wrote for Augusta Free Press and for Dickinson Media as nothing more than a high stakes poker game. And you're there in that poker game, and every time you're calling and you're getting a card, and then you've gotten that card, and then you're sitting there and everybody else is kind of playing along, and then the stakes just, hey, I'll up your stakes. I'll go see your 10, and then I'll go 30 more. I'll go 50, and I'll go 100 more. And that's what we're dealing with right now. It's who's going to blink first in this
Yeah.
whole affair. Who is going to blink? And as I used in the article, it's going to be one's going to be either making the call, and they're going to call or fold. One of the two is going to happen, and that's either going to happen now, coming up soon, or by the time December 1st rolls around and this big case hits.
It's a poker game. It could be a game of chicken. It
Yep.
could be a 19th century duel. I mean, they got their guns. They're going to take 10 paces and let's see if they actually shoot each other. Um, hope
Well,
not.
and I kind of picture Michael Jordan as being like Scott Glenn's character in The Hunt for Red October when he says the line, "The only thing about playing chicken is knowing when to flinch." And that's the big thing right now that I think is knowing when to flinch and who's going to flinch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's where we are. Or, I mean, if they flinch, I don't, I mean, somebody's
Yeah.
going to, but who knows? Who knows? Who knows? So,
Well, do you slap? I mean, seriously, do you slap the face in such a way? I mean, it's almost like a proverbial slap in the face to Michael Jordan, the man who is the epitome of sports. I mean, look at him; he's a champion any way around. And then do you just shut the door and let it, as the old saying is, let the door hit you where the good Lord split you on the way out as you're going out the door? Do you do that? Do you let that happen? And I'm like, no, you can't do that to Michael Jordan. But Michael Jordan plays a completely. Hey, Michael Jordan's into the gambling stuff. He knows, and there's the thing right here of the high stakes of what to call. And I'm sure they're going to push this. They're going to push this to the very, very brink of where they've got to go.
Michael Jordan was the most competitive basketball player. That's why he was the best basketball player, maybe the best of all time, to a point where, I mean, he would fight guys in practice. He would fight his teammates in
Yep.
practice if they dared to beat him in practice. If the other
Mm-hmm.
team dared to beat him in practice, I don't know. I don't see him surrendering. I don't. And Denny Hamlin, I mean, he
No.
loves beating your favorite driver. I mean, yeah, yeah, this is going to be something. So. All right, let's go more off the track news. NASCAR last week announcing the 2026 schedule. What were some of the highlights to you?
Well, the highlights to me, of course, is the mention of that San Diego race that they're going to race out there on the coast. That's going to replace, obviously, it's going to replace the Southern California race that they've been wanting to at least go back to California for such a long time, but now it's in limbo. Nobody knows if that track will ever open back up again. So you've got that one's going to sort of replace. Chicago out of it for a street race, and then you've got the coming back to of all things, you've got the coming back to Chicagoland Speedway outside of Chicago. Going to go back for the track there and race one more time. I think what really has surprised me more out of it was the moving of the All Star race to Dover, Delaware, which we had already said that was a rumor that was going around that I kind of hoped wouldn't happen, but it's a Speedway Motorsports track. I kind of see them rotating it around. Who would have thought that they would have even had the All Star race at Bristol when they had the pandemic going on? They had that too. But here's the thing. I guess what really got me was on the Craftsman Truck Series, and that was they are going to run the trucks in a street race in St. Petersburg, Florida. Now that's where you have some Indy cars and you've had some other professional cars that have drove road course or a street course before, and that's a little bit of a surprise to me. I was not expecting that one coming out of left field. And also, well, Rockingham's coming back. They're going to have Rockingham again for a O'Reilly Auto Parts race and also a Craftsman truck race. But you're kind of wondering, I think North Wilkesboro is somewhere in that mix also about, wanting to have that cup race again. And Richmond, they don't get another date back. They still hold on to that one date. Bristol holds on to their two dates as well as a bunch of other tracks. So there were some surprises and some not so big surprises with this release of the schedule for 2026.
Yeah, yeah, and Richmond not getting a second race, but we kind of known that.
Yeah,
Even though they had a good crowd, they had a good crowd for the race a couple of
right.
weekends ago, but the schedule was in place. Though it wasn't announced, it had been in place for a while. So,
Yeah.
um, all right, let's look ahead to the weekend. NASCAR taking advantage of a quiet Sunday night. I guess we're not too far off from the NFL season starting, but we have an open Sunday night. So I mean, technically a evening race. It starts at 6 o'clock at Darlington, but it'll end in the dark.
Yeah.
The Cookout Southern 500. It's the first of three, the first race in the three race round of 16, if I can spit
Right.
that out, right? So, all right. So, we're starting the playoffs.
Yep.
We've got the field set. We've been looking forward to this all season. What do you think we can expect this weekend?
I don't know, but I will say this. Denny Hamlin said this past week, he said, I make the prediction on so many drivers that will fall out of playoff contention within the first three races right before the cutoff. And Shane Van Gisbergen was one of the big ones. He said that, it's not going to happen. He's not going to make it. Van Gisbergen even led some laps at Daytona the other night. I mean, I thought that was interesting too, coming out. But yeah, I don't know how we're going to look at this Darlington race. The Daytona race there was a lot of blood out there, is the way it seemed to me. There was a lot of bumping and banging. I'm sure that there'll probably be that at Darlington, whether it's intentional from the drivers or the track itself when it just reaches out and grabs you if you think that you're in the clear. But I really don't know who to call at this point. Eric Jones has had some success, especially in the fall race when he has raced there before. It would be something to see him back in again after such a great run last week, which they thought the STP Camry was going to pull off a win at Daytona, but he ends up finishing fifth. You know what was so funny about this though? Kyle Larson has never finished well in a super speedway race, and he finished well the other night at there at Daytona. But Eric Jones was complaining about Kyle Larson beating on him and banging on him while they were there, and he just kind of lost patience and took off. And when he pulled out from the flow of the air, he shot backwards. They asked Kyle Larson a little bit later. They said, what was the problem? Why were you going and beating and banging on Jones so much? And he says, because I can't see who's ahead of me. Jones was ahead of me, and I can't see who was ahead of me in order for me to find out. And I'm kind of like, well, Kyle Larson is kind of a little short. Maybe they need to get him a booster seat for his chair till he can see out over that dashboard and everything, because he didn't know who was in the lead, what was going on, because things were happening so fast. And I'm sure we'll see that same thing at Darlington this weekend. Very fast track, even though it's much shorter than Daytona, but we'll see a lot of beating and banging this week. Who knows who will come out of this one? It's about time for Joey Logano to come out of his doldrums of what happened this past week, and we may see him win. But here's an interesting thing. I don't think that you should count out Ryan Blaney right now, especially after this win at Daytona. I know that a lot of the sports writers and some with the NASCAR Wire Service was saying this is not a good time for Penske Motorsports to be coming back to life, because now they're getting down the stretch. They get stronger as they get down the stretch, and then here Blaney wins the race. Wow, this is just setting things up for what could be a show down to the very end of Phoenix.
As we wrap the show here, I mentioned NFL is not too far off from starting.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some college football, week zero they call it. Everybody else starts this weekend. In fact, starting Thursday night. High school football as well, starting
Mm-hmm.
in Virginia. So the South, Friday nights and Saturday nights and Sundays pretty soon. You have any high school football for this weekend down your way?
Yeah, we've got several games starting things out for the 2025 season. It'll be interesting to watch a young man by the name of Connor Smith. He's going to be finishing up his senior year. He is already an early commit to Arkansas. He signed, everything, the papers and everything else. He says, I'm going to Arkansas. But also at the same time, he's got to look at the big picture. Sam Pittman, who's at Arkansas and the head coach, he may be on the hot seat this year unless he starts producing some wins. Now, he produced some wins against Tennessee last year and a couple other teams, but that's not enough to get you by in the SEC, and so he's going to definitely have to win some football games there this fall coming up. Or we may see Connor Smith, who's the kicker for Ridgeview. He may be going somewhere else. He's very satisfied, very happy with the bunch at Arkansas. They came from Fayetteville all the way to Clintwood, Virginia to recruit this kid. based upon what he had done in camp. And so, I think it's great for him. I think it's great that he's at least piqued some attention out of an SEC team. It's going to be an interesting year in football, in high school football, and especially in college football. I think everybody's talking about Tennessee going to play Syracuse in that first game of the season, and there's a lot of people right now wondering if Syracuse may be for real and may give Tennessee a little bit of a fit when they play that first game coming up here, well, this weekend.
Yeah. I think Virginia Tech starts with South Carolina down in Atlanta.
Yep,
So that one should be fun. I mean, and
yep.
that's a Sunday game. So I was talking about Sunday night being open. I mean, it's open from the NFL standpoint, but yeah, I mean, it's all starting this weekend. So to me, the world feels like it's back on its axis. We got football. I mean, baseball season is good, heading towards the final month of the season, playoffs, etc. We're not that far from basketball
Hmm.
practice starting in October. We got football games. So yeah, the world is back where it needs to be. We can rejoice. So, sports fans can, and the NASCAR's in the playoffs. I mean, sports fans can rejoice. We've got a lot to look forward to.
Well, and I wonder if and I've got this awful feeling. Now, I don't know why I get these awful feelings sometimes, but you know, I'm hoping NASCAR will still be around. I'm hoping that NASCAR will at least kind of give in to some of the pressure that some of the people like Dale Earnhardt Jr. and others have been putting on them here lately to try to bring the sport back to the masses and bring the sport back to the people. I don't know. I don't know where we go from here. I know that it would not be a fun fall without having some NASCAR races along the way. But anything and everything is possible in this country and in this world. I hate to say it that way, but I think you know where I'm going with that, Chris. We think that things can't possibly happen or get any worse, but they get worse. So I mean, it's just about the best way to say it, I guess.
Yeah, just when things couldn't get any worse, you go out and do something like this, and yeah, what the line from Dumb and Dumber, and you totally redeem yourself. No, we haven't
Yep.
redeemed ourselves yet.
No.
All right, well, great review of NASCAR. We're ready for the weekend. As always, Ron, thanks for your time and your insight.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thanks.